Ow. All right, back again. Hey, you remember when last time we worked on the Camaro, we said the white car was going to be next?
That's what made you did.
I lied.
Yeah, so I just haven't got around to do anything on that. I mean, I got all the parts. I got like the back of the car is just full of brakes and stuff and all that. You see the new gas tanks on top of it. I just haven't got a chance to do anything on that. So we're back to the Z28, and to keep things easier to follow, I've decided I'm going to start naming these things, and this is going to be Project Hand-Me-Down. That's Project First Love. So that's how I'll break them up into playlists on the channel, if you guys want to keep track of them. So as you can see at the beginning, I'm draining out the coolant in here because, well, first of all, if you watched any of the cruise videos, I think you should be able to tell that I'm pretty much over dealing with any sort of coolant and stuff at this point in time, but it is what it is, because the Z here, the radiator, the left side tank there, driver's side tank, has been leaking for a good while, and I still haven't got this thing running you know, the way it should be, because I just haven't had time. But I did get, in addition to a new radiator, I just got a standard 3rd gen just kind of fit in one. It's not the bespoke one for the Z28, and I'll kind of go over that later. But I got that switch out. I got a new gooseneck, and I got a new coolant temp sensor to go in that, because I'm pretty much out of sensors to replace to try and get this thing running normal. But then also too, on one of my other videos, and I'm sorry dude, I don't remember your name who said this, but I also saw this someplace online once where some person wrote this down, but this guy had the same issue with this engine cutting itself off just at random. He went and replaced a bunch of different sensors on his stuff. What ended up having to do on his end is he had to swap out the distributor, because apparently something in these distributors will just make them short out at any given intervals at a certain point in time. So I got a new distributor here from Rock Auto. It's the only one I could find for kind of cheap that isn't like an overly expensive Excel or MSD thing, because like I said many times, this engine is not staying in this car. It's going to go. I would just like to be able to drive it until that point in time. But that's what we're going to work on today. But before that, I did some upgrades in the garage. Check it out. It's my old plasma TV from 2008. It was a monster to get up there, but it's up there right now, and you would think that having a TV around when you're working is kind of a distraction, but it's not. It's actually really good to have stuff going in the background to play, and I can, you know, look up videos and stuff if I need to. And right now we got, what is it? We got Anderton's TV up there, and then even more important, hang on, check this out. This is better. That's ready. Oh, added lights. So that will help me see far greater than previously, even though it doesn't really help under the hood because, you know, the hood's in the way. But the rest of the shop, garage, is looking much nicer. So I'm draining out the coolant now. I'm just going to, you know, start taking it all apart, pull off the hoses, pull out the radiator and all that stuff. A quick thing here while we're actually, I got the camera out and we're talking about right here. I know this is a problem with TPI cars, and I got a TPI in there. I don't know if it's so much with these engines or not, but if you find yourself when you're driving and under acceleration, your temperature starts climbing, and then when you let off, it goes back to a normal temperature. Well, that is because the lower radiator hose, definitely on TPI cars, what they do is under acceleration, the water pump will start compressing the hose itself, restricting the amount of coolant that goes in it. So if you find yourself with that issue, just have the car run, come underneath the hood, rev it up, and watch and see if the hose collapses. That's usually the fix. So I'm going to get this positioned and just finish draining this out and start taking stuff apart. Okay, I got the radiators out here. This one is the original Z28 radiator. The differences between the two, and first of all, if you look at the top, this entire thing is 100% full metal. Probably a lot of copper in here. I'm going to try and see if I can't sell this to someone who has a Z28 and may just want to get it rebrazed and reuse it, but this tank is leaking in it, so that's why I had to pull it out. But if you look at this, I mean the thickness of the I don't know exactly what you call it, the airfoil kind of sort of deal compared to the thickness of the body of this is a little bit different. I think that may be more because it's kind of an older construction, but most importantly, like this, if you look here, it doesn't have the tie-in for the heat. Back when this car was made, they still pulled the line that went to the heater core straight from the back of the water pump. So this one's just going to remain capped once in the car. And also too, this doesn't have the two plugs for the trans cooler feed and return for automatic cars. I don't know if the Z28s with the autos back in 82, 3, and 4, if they had the tie-ins for trans cooler, if they didn't have one at all, or maybe it was something else. That I'm not sure of, but this is kind of the difference here. I mean, you got a metal petcock, you got plastic on here, plastic tanks. This is pretty much like the same as the replacement one I already have in First Love over there. But yeah, that's what the main difference is. I'm going to see if I can't sell this to someone who wants it. If not, I'm going to take it and see how much money I can get for it from scrap. So, yep. I'll be putting this back in the car in a little bit once I replace the gooseneck and the thermostat. I got a new gooseneck and a new coolant temp sensor that goes on the gooseneck here to replace this one. Since this is like really the only sensor I kind of haven't replaced yet that could be kind of this car, I got to pull out these stupid vacuum lines or whatever I guess they are here. And I also got this. Well, if you watch any other videos, the first thing I did in this car was drop the thermostat down to like a 180 because this came from New York. But down here, I just got a stock one to put back in there, like a stock temperature one, in case maybe the car, after being 40 years in New York, didn't like it, just in case. But I got this one. It's like a fail-safe thermostat. And if you look here, it's got these little brass tongs on it. And what happens with this is if this feels like it's getting too hot, this will drop down and the thermostat will drop below those hooks and stay grabbed in there and locked on. So you have full coolant flow to try and keep you, from overheating and cracking the head or your block. So just got to switch this stuff out and pop this back in there. That took some heat to get out. Kind of ripped the threads out of the other one. I mean, whatever. Got a replacement for it. Just going to put some Teflon tape on it. If you have liquid piped up, you can do that as well. But since this is in a water channel, you definitely don't want it to leak out. So wrap it up. I'm going to pull the distributor now and put in the new one. And a lot of people think when you put in a distributor, you kind of got to run it up the top dead center to line the distributor up like that. You don't really necessarily have to. Let me go over here. So what I did here is I have marked just a piece of tape back here, and I got the number 5 post on the cap marked in that position, and then I got where the rotor button is pointing marked out here. So this way when you drop in the rotor, you know, when it's in, it'll slide into the gear on the camshaft and it will point in this direction. The body of the distributor will still be loose enough because you got to unloosen the bolt right down here. It's like a 5/8. They make a distributor wrench for it, but it's a specialty tool, and I mean it's really not that much more convenient than just using a standard wrench. But when you drop that in there and go and tighten it up, the body of the distributor is going to want to move while the stem inside of it is locked in place. So you put in there, tighten it up a little bit, and then you drop the cap back on and line the cap back up in the same position as where you put this in. It should be within spitting distance of being the correct time, and you'll just check it once the timing is, well, once the car is warmed up to operating temperature, and then you have to disconnect the distributor again since this is computer controlled, and then start it back up and check the base timing that way. And annoyingly on this car, you'll be able to see down there, God, can't even see, sorry about the lighting, but down in here on the top of the timing is the timing indicators on the timing cover above the balancer. Instead of putting it on the side to make it a little bit easier, it's up there through the top. So that's going to be fairly obnoxious to try and find, and I haven't even tried to look yet for the slot on the balancer itself to try and put some whiteout or anything in there to be able to see it a little better. But yeah, I'm just going to disconnect the hold down bolt, pull the whole distributor out, put the new one in, get it lined up, get it snug enough, and then put that all back together, hook that up. And I got top radiator hose here, but this seems to be pretty small for the Atlas. I think I have to run to the store again and double check. So just doing the distributor now. Then after that, I'll fill it all up with coolant, hopefully fire the car up, and hopefully it'll stay running. Let it get up to operating temperature, you know, flush all the bubbles out, all that stuff, and then recheck the timing. Of course. That tie down was annoyingly, ridiculously tight. Had to put some bolt brake on it, but distributor out. So I'm going to clean out that gasket there and pop the new one in the way I told you about lining things up. Okay, everything's back together. I had the new distributor in there, and I got it, the hold down in there snug, so the distributor shouldn't move, but loose enough to where I can twist it when I go and check the timing. So what I'm going to do now is I got the distributor hooked up, and I'm kind of in a little bit of a situation, for lack of a better term, here, where I also need to bleed the coolant system, since I changed out all that. So the distributor hopefully should be close enough to being set to where hopefully I have enough juice in the battery, since I haven't driven this in a while, to start it up, let it run, and I'm really hoping that it'll run up and get to operating temperature and I can bleed the system out. Assuming that happens, once that's done, I'll turn the car off. Then I have to go and I have to disconnect the distributor from the wiring harness. It's a 4-plug connector back on the back side over there, kind of right underneath the wiper motor. That way it disconnects it from the computer, so I would be able to check the base timing. And per the sticker here on the car, it is 6 degrees at 700 RPM. So first things first, let's try and start this thing up for the first time in, I don't know, 2-3 months at this point in time, and see if it will stay running. Here's the hook. I imagine it's going to stall a couple times just from getting gas into the car. Okay, well, it's running. You can hear it's pretty lopey. The timing is a bit off. That's okay. It's close enough, I think. I'm probably not enough degrees advanced right now. Oh, there you go. That's a little bit closer. So I'm going to let it sit here and warm up as I cycle the coolant through and try and get to run. I'm going to let this do its thing. Hopefully it'll stay running the way it goes, and I'll be back later. Okay, so it started up and it stayed running. Ran the whole time. I bled the coolant out. All the air out of the coolant, I should say. And then, I mean, it just kept on running. It got a little bit hot per that gauge. I don't know how accurate the gauge is really at this point in time. It's almost 4 years old now. And the coolant fan did not kick on. So when I'm going, I let this kind of cool down a little bit, but it'll still be at operating temperature. But when I go to check the time, I'm going to put a fan in front of the radiator, blow some air through it while I do this. So first and foremost, what you want to do, old distributor here to show you, this 4-wire connector right here, like I said earlier, is right underneath there, the window wiper motor. You just disconnect that and let it sit. That disconnects the distributor from the computer. The check engine light will probably come on, to be expected. Okay, next thing you gotta do is this car runs at 6 degrees advanced. So what that means is, as the piston comes up, if the piston is straight up, fully in the cylinder, and the rod is straight, that's top dead center. Advanced is it's going down, it's slightly before top dead center. So this is 6 degrees of rotation before top dead center. What that allows to happen is the spark plug fires as it's coming to compress it, and as it compresses, it gets a full burn into the chamber before it then goes past top dead center and starts driving the piston back down on the power stroke. So if you are retarded per ignition wise, that means it is firing after top dead center. If you're advanced, that means it's firing before top dead center. The rule of thumb is, I think, for power is you want to get as much advanced as you kind of can before it starts knocking and all that stuff. I just want to get this thing running and driving down the road, so I'm just setting it at the factory. So it will be 6 degrees advanced top dead center. So I can't show you on the car because right down here behind the water pump on top of the timing cover is the little notch gauge that you use to check the timing. On the balancer there should be a groove. I was unable to find it, so I'm just going to be looking and trying to hopefully see it jump up. If not, I'll check again in a little bit. A lot of times if you can find it, clean out, put some white out in it so it's easier to see. So on your timing gun here, this is a digital advanced one, but you hook up the batteries to where it goes, and then you hook this connector up onto the #1 spark plug wire, front driver's side corner. If you have an old school standard timing light where all it does is flash the light, you'll need to point down, look at the gauge, and in every notch you have a big V notch, which would be kind of your 0, and then it goes up, small notch, up, small notch, up, small notch. So I think this is 2, 4, 6 degrees advanced, like that. So you would hold the light down there and watch how that line moves up and down that gauge. And I'm going to make a graphic here for you to understand. If you have an advanced timing light, and before they were digital, it was a timing light that would have a knob on it. So you could take and say at 0, when I shine it on there, that line should be at 0. But if I want to turn to 6 degrees, I would rotate the knob on the gun to 6 degrees, and when it fires and lights up, the timing light on the mark on the balancer should be right in the center of the 0 groove on the indicator. Now this is a digital timing light, so you can, advance and retard the timing whatever you want on this digital wise, and that's the same thing. You look down, if you set to 6 degrees on here, it'll show the timing notch is right up on the 0 on the gauge. If you set this to 0, it'll show that the timing notch is at the 6 degree mark on the gauge. If you have a more expensive timing gun where it's like a full digital screen, it will show you what the timing is and then what the engine RPM speed is. This is not that gun, so I'm going to check it the way I just explained to you. Hopefully that makes sense. You need to get 6 degrees here, then we'll tighten up the distributor and that should be good to go. Then I got to tune the carburetor, I think. So let's get this set up. That's just difficult to fit in there. You want to keep the cables away from any sort of moving object. You can see I'm lit up here. We're set to 4-stroke. Okay, so I got it set on mine to the degree advanced angle, and you drop it back to 6 degrees. Start the car up and see. Okay, so annoyingly, I couldn't see a mark on the balancer at all the entire time I was doing that. I rotated it, it seemed to line up or idle a little smoother. I'm gonna try and set it, I'm gonna try and zero it out in a minute. I'll start it up again in a minute after it sits for a minute. I'm having difficulties kind of getting a good contact on the negative battery cable with this clamp. But if you see it flashing, that's every time the #1 cylinder is firing. So that's why. I found the groove. It just lined up when I looked down there. I can actually see it now. So I'm just going to try and clean that up and be able to put a mark on it, something white or a color that I can actually see. If you can't kind of get it in the groove, if you kind of smear it on both sides of the groove, you'll at least be able to see the gap in between the paint or whatever it is that you use, and you can use that as the mark. So I'm going to do that. I'll be back in a bit. Okay, I wasn't able to find any whiteout, but I did find this. Some sort of paint color thing or whatever. I got it as far in as I could to fill in that line, the marker on the balancer. The water pump, the way I had this position, the water pump covers like 3/4 of the balancer itself to try and find where the mark is. So hopefully I got it in far enough to see this. Thanks, babe. You're only gonna know if you watch this video, and you're not going to. No. All right. Let's try and start this up and check it again. The timing had changed on that a little bit because the temperature dropped down a little. Whoops! So I set it, and then it bumped up like 2 degrees. So let's tighten this down, and then restart the car check again. So I said earlier in the video that you didn't need a distributor wrench, and I also said 5/8 is actually 9/16. I said you didn't need a distributor wrench. That is true. And had I had a distributor wrench at that point in time, I wouldn't have been able to use it to break free the bolt. I had to take off some connector with some vacuum hoses going there for some smog bullshit to get a wrench down there to be able to break it because it was on so tight. So now definitely you probably kind of want this to tighten it up. Alright, we're locked in at, looks to be about 6.5-ish. I'm going to call that good enough. Now we got to tune the carburetor, I guess. Yeah. That's how you set timing. This location of it in this car is kind of a pain in the ass. Okay, so I'm going to call this a success. My initial assumption about there being some sort of electrical issue that first popped up with this car over a year ago at this point in time, that's how long it's taken me to be able to get done with it. Since the car was just cut off at random, just instantly shut itself down without any sputtering or anything like that, made me think it was electrical. I did the coil, cap, the rotor, even though I knew the cap, the rotor wasn't the issue, the ignition switch just to check because of what was cutting off. Turns out that one guy, dude, I don't remember what your name is. I could look back at the video at the time recording this, but I'm like kind of out working on it. But thank you for saying this happened to you in the past. It's a distributor the whole time. For whatever reason, these distributors get a short somewhere in the body, even if you rebuild them or anything like that. So this was the cause of my problem. From switching this out and bleeding all the system and running it and trying to tune it a little bit, I'm missing a piece for a 12 meter that I borrowed from a buddy, and I didn't even need to buy a timing light here. It was an old school one, but this is the one where you wouldn't be able to adjust, like I was talking about earlier. You would just read it on the gauge on the car. But that appears to be missing an adapter that connects to the tack wire that comes out of the back here. An HEI distributor, I can show you. It comes out of this plug here. It would plug in here and plug the tack into it, and then it would have a little pigtail that comes off to hook it up to adjust the air fuel mixture. I'm going to try and source one of those. I was adjusting the idle air bleed valve here, and I got it, I think, pretty well adjusted. I rebuilt the carburetor, as you've seen in those 2 other videos, and I didn't touch the bleeder valves or the idle air mixture valves in there or anything. It was just kind of a good cleaning. So hopefully that is set close to where it needs to be. But yeah, I also found out that my aunt was running premium in this thing from the very beginning. So I've been running 87. The gas is several months old now, so I'm sure it's not the best right now. So I'm probably going to get some octane booster to run through this and get a little bit extra gas in here to kind of flush the old stuff out. And once I track down the extra piece for this, I'll just go and adjust it, and hopefully everything will be good to go from then. But as it looks right now, it's been running on and off full cycle for a good solid 45 minutes since I first tried starting it up. So I'm going to say that is good to go. So if you run across this issue, this may not be your problem. This was my problem. So all right, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I don't know what video I would have coming up next time. I guess we'll just see where the projects take me. But Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.